Welcome to the partnership path in real life. Ever felt the gap between theory and reality? We're here to bridge that. Dive into real stories, real challenges, and real successes from professionals just like you in the partner and channel management world. Each episode is a journey, a lesson from those who've walked the partnership path, faced the challenges, and reaped the rewards. Whether you're a seasoned partner manager or just starting your journey, this is where theory meets practice. Ready to see the real side of partnership? Let's get started.
Well, hello, Kari. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you decided to come on this podcast with us. It's great to have you here, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But before we do that, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to our audience. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been working with partners.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, John. You know how passionate I feel about this. So I'm glad that I get a platform to talk about it. I am a vice president of channels at Infor. So I manage channel managers. I have a team of channel managers. I've been at Infor working in the channel for about 13 years. Prior to that, I was at Epicor. And so I've been involved with channel management for almost 20 years. Hard to believe.
Yeah, because you're only 25. So that's amazing. Yeah.
It's a good way to start.
Awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, it's so good. I mean, it's one of the reasons I'm really excited to have you on this episode, Kari, is because you have so much experience and you've seen so many different things. So I'm anxious for our audience to benefit from that experience. So this talk right now, us getting together, is to talk about this episode that we just did on partnership business planning and keeping strategic separate from tactical and kind of making sure that the partner understands what we're doing and all that kind of stuff. So let's just start by having you tell me like what resonated with you on that episode, or what struck you in that episode that, you know, made you willing to talk to us now.
Yeah. So I am very passionate, and my team knows this because I ask all the time about the importance of keeping tactical and strategic separate. So I think, that really struck with me because the bottom line is the shareholders are very different. And so keeping it separate is really important. Also, it separates, that visionary goal from the more tactical. And it's so easy when we are driving for revenue to get just stuck in the tactical. And if we just hang out in the tactical, then we're never going to exponentially increase our sales. So that was something that really resonated. I think the biggest thing you said that I was just like, yes, is we do not assign quotas. We do not show up to a tactical planning meeting and say, well, this year you're going to sell $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And you are dead on. I loved it when you said, if we approach it as a partnership plan and we ask the partner, what do you need to do this year? What do you need to sell? What do we need to do together within this partnership for you to be a profitable business, for it to be sustainable? 95% of the time, their number is bigger than the number that we had slated for them. Yeah. So why would we put ourselves in a box and just, here you go, get to work? So those are probably the two biggest things.
So you and I have talked about this before, Kari, and I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about that, about your background with this, because you have told me before about some experiences you had where that sort of light bulb went off for you about how to approach that conversation. Could you talk a little bit about that for the audience, of sort of that transition that you made from assigning quota, or, kind of approaching it a little less partnership like to what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me was in the beginning, when I was first a channel manager, you talked a little bit about this in the episode, but it was a lot like, here I am as the vendor and I'm coming in and we're going to talk about all my lovely ideas, when I would be talking to business owners who had been in business 2-3 times as long as I had, right?
Right.
So for me, the real pivot or transformation came when I approached it more as a true partnership and tried to really understand their business. So whether I would be doing a strategic partnership plan or a tactical plan, the very first thing I would do is understand and ask them, what are your specific strategic plans for your business? Not even just the partnership, But
Right.
just by starting out to say, oh, wow, you want to be a $20 million company in 3 years. That's
Yeah.
great, right? Understand how they're going to do that. And then kind of dial it back and say, well, what part of that can this partnership be? So that just really, and it's funny because once I started truly caring more about their business and understanding fully their business, oh my goodness, they would open up and it would say, well, hey, let's do this. I think we can go into this market. And wouldn't it be great if you could help me here? So that was the biggest transformation for me. And I think sometimes, I was an inexperienced channel manager and I felt like I had to bring so much to the table.
Right. I've got to
When
have all the
really,
answers.
yeah, I have to have all the answers. And it's like
Yeah.
it came so much more naturally when I just asked a lot of questions to learn about what are their goals. And then I knew ways that we could work together. So that was a huge transformation. It completely changed the way I did business.
Yeah. Well, and I think, buried in that too for you, and it just comes across in the way you talk about it is you can ask those questions two different ways, right? You can ask them with an agenda, right?
Right.
Or you
Right.
can ask them about in a way that is, I am genuinely curious about what you want to do as a business. And you get two very different responses to those two different approaches.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I think for me I've always worked within that S&B space. And so I'm working with smaller partners, so to speak, right?
Sure.
Let's say 50
Sure.
million and under. And once I really started to realize too, listen, for some people, I want to be able to make payroll. I want to
Yeah.
be able to, I had a business owner once tell me, hey, I'm feeding families, right? I have
Right.
a staff of 80 and I'm feeding
Yeah.
families. So if we're not selling together in this partnership, then
Yeah.
Christmas isn't going to be the same in that house. Or,
Yeah.
it was that reality to where, then you're genuine. I'm genuinely interested in, we got to keep this train growing, right? Moving. So it is. And they can see right through you if you don't genuinely care. You're right.
Yeah. If the reason you're asking the question is because you've got some trick up your sleeve that you're going to use it, they can see that a mile away, right? And so,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's get back to your main point, which was this keeping strategic and tactical separate. So,
Mhm.
um, look, one of the things about the conversations that Tony and I have, even though Tony is a longtime channel person, that's not what she does anymore. And so there's a tendency sometimes in those episodes that we get to talk at a really theoretical level. And
Sure.
so tell us, how do you do it? How do you make sure your team is
Mhm.
keeping strategic and tactical separate? Like, get pragmatic with me. What is it that you make them do or encourage them to do?
Sure. You talked a little bit about this in the episode that, look, I don't care the format that you use. And I always have stuck to the fact of, hey, if somebody else has a format that works and they've proven that out,
Right.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's not spend time there. So the way that I have my channel managers do it, and often I'm a part of those strategic planning conversations, is
Yep.
we do use the Excel template that your team has put together. And
Okay.
so we go over, so in the planning meeting, our internal planning meeting,
Yep.
we pull up that strategic plan that is listed out on the spreadsheet. Now, the
Yep.
key that I always tell my team is when we go into a strategic planning meeting, we need to be aware of what those goals were, right? So if our cadence is we're going to meet annually to look at that 3-year goal. So we need to know, okay, last year, what were those 3-year goals?
Yep.
But we don't pull up the spreadsheet in the meeting.
Yeah.
So it's important that we understand in preparation, okay, where were they currently at? What was their target? How are they tracking on that target? Okay, what are any big changes? So we're doing all of that internally. But then when we sit down at the table with stakeholders, we have a list. And I even encourage my channel managers to write these down in their portfolio or whatever it is, right? So we sit down at that table and we know what we're asking. Again, we're asking a lot just about their business first.
Yeah.
And that is also why I will say when it comes to that strategic partnership planning, we very strategically plan it just after that partner has done their own annual planning. So for example, right, when we talk about a mutual operating period, most of our partners are from January to December, which means they do their internal planning in October.
Yep.
Already in August, I'm reminding my channel managers, find out when they're doing their internal planning, we want to go in right after they've done their internal planning, because now they know as a company, where are they projecting to be in 3 years? And then, right, those questions are just top of mind for them.
Yep.
And so the timing of when you do it, I also think is very important, because otherwise you might go in with a bunch of questions and they're like, well, we haven't really thought about that, or we haven't got to that yet. Yeah. Or that might change in the next couple of months. So we try to do it, pragmatically. We try to do it close to right after when they've done their own planning. And then after the meeting, the channel managers have to fill out that spreadsheet. That's the way that we keep those internal goals in case there's any transition, turnover, anything like that. And also just to review it when we do internal reviews, then we can see, okay, here's where we're tracking. So does that help understand?
Yeah. Super helpful. I have two follow-ons. The first one I want to ask you about is what do you guys turn that around back to the partner to say, hey, here's what we agreed on? And what format does that typically take?
Great. I'm so glad you brought that up. We do use the same format. Okay. So once we finish that strategic meeting, because I also think this shows a really good investment of time. Yep. So, meaning, okay, the channel manager came back, they took the time to fill it out. Here's what I understood is where we're at today, where you want to be. Did I miss anything? But yes, then we do send that to the channel partner and say, this is what I understood from the meeting. And then it's kind of a working document. I will say, although we don't pull up the spreadsheet going into the strategic partnership planning meeting, many times the partner will already have it up and available. Like, here's what we talked about last year. And that's great, right?
Yeah. So the fact that you don't necessarily it's not a meeting to fill out the form, right?
That's why I don't want the form up. That's what I tell my team, right? And then it just looks like a checkbox.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that you're saying some of your partners have gotten to the point where they know where we're going. And so they've actually prepared for that and they have their own version of it. Or maybe it's the one that we sent them last year or whatever that they're then using. And I want to clarify one other thing. Not everybody listening will have necessarily seen the template that we've provided for you guys. How long is it? So when you let's talk about that strategic plan. Are we talking about a whole lot of pages, or are we talking about half a page, one page?
That's one spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And
when you say one spreadsheet, that could be a lot of rows.
I was going there, John. You beat me to it. When we talk strategic goals, I mean, there's anywhere I've seen a company, I guess, have as few as 4 because they've just netted out. Definitely we don't go more. I would say I've never seen more than, say, 7 to 10, because again, these are those visionary goals.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not a lot, but what I love about that spreadsheet is it says, where are we today? And what is the KPI that we're going to measure? Because, how many people might say, oh yeah, we want to be to 50 million. Well, you got 5 million today. Right. So what does,
how are we going to get there?
How are we going to, market share is always a good one. We want to grow market share. Well, how are you going to measure that? So it's so important. You have the goal, you have the KPI, you have where we stand today, and then where do we want to be 3 years from now? Or in the tactical, maybe it's, 12 months from now.
Right.
So
the last thing I just want to get a quick perspective from you on, because I know you guys have, over the last several years, you guys have changed your fiscal cycle, which has changed when you guys do planning. And so now you're a little bit more aligned with your partners on a calendar year. But were you doing what you said a minute ago about trying to do strategic planning aligned to the partners' planning when you guys were not on a calendar year?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Still on the partners, everything partner focused. Because again, when you think about it, I want to know what their company goals are. We can break our mutual operating period up into, 6 and 6 or whatever we need to do, right? 8 and 4, 8 months and 4 months. That's fine. But it really is centered around their company goals. And we're just one of the avenues of how we're going to get there, which is another thing that I love. Because if you start with asking them their company goals, and then you ask questions about how we fit into it, now we're understanding mind share and wallet share. So we're also getting additional information that way. If you realize, we're only really 10% of their overall goals for revenue. Right?
Yeah, no wonder we're not getting the kind of
Yeah.
resource allocation that we want or whatever. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not really making a dent in where they want to be. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kari, I told you when we started, we try and keep these relatively short. I could talk to you about this stuff all day long. So thank you for coming on the podcast, sharing your wisdom and expertise and your pragmatic approach. It's super helpful for those of us that are out there listening. So thank you. And I'm just going to warn you right now. I want to have you back. We're going to have you on another episode at some point. And so I'm
I would
hoping
love
that
that.
you'll continue to listen to episodes and pick another one that you're really passionate about, and we'll have you back on to talk about it.
Great. Well, thanks again for having me, and I look forward to the next episode.
Thanks, Kari.
Thanks, John. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the partnership path in real life today. Remember, the real world tests theories and creates leaders. Don't stop here. Subscribe, learn, and grow with us. Let's make every experience count. Until our next real life story.